When our emotions are controlled by others, they gain the ability to also influence our thoughts, which can then affect our actions. Stranger Things reimagines the concept of possession, outlining how malignant forces seek to invade our well being, tricking us into collapsing narratives of fear and shame. Once we become afraid, the game begins. Where confidence and self respect once stood, doubt and insecurity begin to creep into its place. For the purpose of this video, I would like you to consider the mind flare, vecna, and fear experienced by way of shame as a kind of possession. All seek to divert the thoughts and energy of their hosts for the purpose of survival. The interesting thing about fear is that when it takes a hold of us, we become incapable of thinking clearly. Matters become worse when we have unresolved traumatic memories. The show's science teacher says it the best. All living things, from complex mammals to organisms, respond to danger. We are very much the same. When we encounter danger, our hearts start pounding, our palms start to sweat. These are the signs of the physical and emotional state we call fear. Stranger Things becomes a helpful tool for us if we analyze it not as a logical story, but as an allegory, representing how radical acceptance and healing the inner child is the key to unlocking our power. We have to accept what happened in our lives, regardless of whether or not we like it, or we risk becoming bitter and angry towards ourselves. In what I would say is the most deep conversation in the entire series, Robin talks to Will about how she came across a film she made in the fourth grade. She mentions how all of a sudden she was looking at a projection of her younger self, a version of her that was so carefree and fearless, who loved every part that she saw. That was the moment she realized it was never about her crush, Tammy. It was always about her. She was looking outside of herself for answers, but the entire time she had them inside of her. She just needed to stop being so scared. Once she did that, she felt like she could fly. And the cool thing is, she literally did. She started her radio show, becoming Rockin' Robin, got the girl, and started loving herself in life again. This is the same story many of us experience. As we become adults, we begin taking on rules, begin fearing things where once we were simply curious. And this is a byproduct of the human experience. Inevitably, as children, we absorb some of the beliefs of the people around us, abandoning parts of ourselves in order to fit in or maintain comfort. Robin, through her authenticity, literally teaches Will how to transmute his fear and pain into power. Vecna serves as a representation of possession by way of unprocessed trauma. Since his mind is entirely possessed by this parasite, he attempts to infect weaker minds through projection. Each time he meets another character on screen, he throws their unresolved trauma into their face, strengthening his power by transmuting their light into fear as fuel. His tactics are illusory, but paradoxically real. Vecna proclaims his victims are powerless multiple times as an attempt to get them to succumb to his belief, the belief he has about himself. He is a master of projection. The only instances we see him defeated on screen is when his victim's love overpowers his hate. We see Max, 11, and Will do this. The heroes are able to transmute their pain into power by focusing their minds on the times where they were the happiest, the moments where they felt free and able. In doing so, they momentarily remembered that they were never weak. They simply started believing in fear, false evidence appearing real because of their life experiences. This is the work of the possessed mind. It intends to replicate itself, projecting its own fear outward onto others. Fear as such becomes a thought form that we feed with our energy, and it begins to breathe and grow. Very similarly to the mind flare. In order for our curious minds to believe in fear, it must often mask itself with a story. Vecna uses a fiction book to come up with a story that he uses to indoctrinate the children. This is a funny detail because he isn't even creative enough to come up with his own story. He uses one already written and makes himself the hero. Holly, for some unspecified reason, is the 11th child in the lineup and has the strongest dormant powers. So it could be that she is replacing Elle in a kind of recreation of Papa's experiment. The number of children may also nod to the Last Supper. Specifically, the number 11 has a slew of symbolic meanings. Some consider it to be a symbol of wholeness or oneness, but I believe here it is meant to represent embracing the inner child. This is further evidenced by the fact that Henry brings the kids to his childhood home. It's his way of recreating the story that he felt he had no agency over. Max in Stranger Things serves as a guide. She helps Holly recognize her strength and pulls her away from the path of possession that Vecna seeks to lead her down. She helps her see the trauma that she's been through doesn't define her. This scene is very important because there is a realization from both characters that they have power in their circumstances, and that they get to choose how they view themselves. She tells her that Holly the heroic is within her. She just needs to believe that she is. This scene spells out to us that bravery is a decision that we make again and again. Even though Holly tried to be brave, it wasn't enough. It is because bravery is not something we think as much as it is something that we embody. According to Vecna, he chooses children because they are weak in mind and body, easily broken, reshaped, and controlled, ignoring the fact that they are literally essential components for him to create the world he wants to see. His psyche functions under the influence of possession. Henry is manipulated by his pain in the same fashion the mind flayer infects Billy. In both cases, their true selves lay dormant deep beneath the surface, where Elle was able to draw up Billy's inner child in his last moments, appealing to his emotions and the good he still remembered. Henry refuses to embrace his with the help of Will. Not because he cannot, but because he feels more familiar with pain and misery than he does in hope. He has spent so long under the spell, seeing the truth of his past would be synonymous with accepting the decisions he made were to his detriment. As he states himself, he started to believe as a child something was wrong with him. His teachers and his doctors told him he was broken. Henry is the story of a child who never got the help they needed. Papa found him and further increased his pain for his own agenda. For Henry to believe he can say no to the voice in his head would mean that he is no different from the children he despises. This is too much for his psyche to handle, so he abandons his inner child completely. Better the devil you know. The Mind Flayer uses Vecna as a battery to power its heart, with his permission. Henry becomes a literal monster and a very powerful being, but at what cost? He has no friends, no love, no light. Will and the gang recognize the source of Vecna's strength is by nature weakness, as it requires a victim, a sacrifice in order to have any power at all. Henry, Angela, psychological fear, and the Mind Flayer all have the same weakness. None can exist without the power of projection onto another. In the words of Papa 211, it's important for us to not just see our past, but to fully experience it. And in doing so, we can repair our broken signals. The brain protects us from bad memories. Many of us have demons in our past. If we go too fast, we can become lost in the darkness. However, if we give ourselves the chance, we might find that gold was never outside of us, but hidden deep within, underneath the very place we were most scared to look.